what germinated for you? What, so when we talk about the Hughes Family Bank today, and you're introducing this to, one of the families that has adopted it, what are some of the things that, have grown from this idea for you and for the families you serve?
Well, let's look at it culturally and structurally. And as we all know, the great paper written by our colleague, Matt Wesley, Culture Eats Structure for Breakfast. So a lot of work in this field about family banks, unfortunately, Michael, as it's filtered into the world, has been picked up by structuralists. And they'll talk to the family, well, you need this structure, that structure. No, you don't. You need a culture of giving and then find a structure that supports that culture. That's fundamental.
Okay.
So what is the culture we're talking about here? An ancient philosopher named Aristotle, that is the founding ideas of the Western world. By the way, the Eastern world, the Buddha and the Hindus have the same principle. What's the difference between a gift and a transfer? Isn't it the same thing? No. Aristotle said for something to be a gift, this is culture, it must be magnificent. He said that was a virtue, like courage and justice, or in the East, equanimity and empathy. What did he mean? He meant magnanimity, hard to say, hard to do, big-heartedness. Woo! Feel that?
Yeah.
So he said, first of all, if you're going to make something for another person, ask yourself, are you making a gift or a transfer? Now, transfers are okay, but almost always they carry with them some kinds of obligations. They're not big-heartedness. They're not, I love you, I act. Yes, I don't want to harm you or anything, but I act. So I would say one of the things from our family, again, this is not the Hugheses. We have all the same problems everybody else has, for heaven's sakes. But when we act in the family bank toward the world, we act, are we making a gift? Now, from a structural standpoint, my dad and I did decide to create a very small foundation. So we have the James E. and Elizabeth B. Hughes Foundation. It's very small, but it enables the rising generations to get together and decide to give away, I don't know, $5,000. It's not, but the important is they're getting together as social and then acting toward another. And the one thing we ask them to do is not make transfers. We ask them to make gifts. This isn't subtle. This is culture. Now, people are saying, well, what does he mean? Well, I'll say this. Grants, write a check to somebody, it's not a bad thing. Something happens. But are you involved? Is your heart involved? Huh. Is there magnanimity? What are you transferring? Oh, transferring? No. Are you making a gift? You see, they're very different things, actually.
Yeah.
So a family bank affords a family, that's a lovely word, an opportunity together to do something without a lot of structure, no structure at all, frankly, unless you really need it, to assure that you're learning about each other as you're acting with big hearts to another. Now, that doesn't mean that a donor advised fund isn't a good idea. It's a great idea. I have one myself. They're a great idea. Well, my wife does, and I work with her. But the key is, what is the culture of your intention? Go ahead.
I was just gonna, it's just interesting that your family bank was more charitably inclined, and most people would think of that as the donor advised fund, or we did another podcast where we talked about the grandchild philanthropy project,
Right, exactly.
and so that it seems like it would go to that. whenever I've known you for years, when I thought of the family bank, I had not heard this story, and this story makes it so much more meaningful and different, because immediately I'm thinking about entrepreneurial things. I'm thinking about education, or what are we doing to help the individuals flourish?
Right.
And
Right.
and you surprised me in a great way. And it's about that the culture of that gift of being able to say, take your time and your talent, and we'll match the treasure to go with it.
That's the key.
And that makes it a magnanimous gift. That makes it meaningful.
That's right. And you're doing it together.
Yeah. And right. And so go back to, in other podcasts that we've talked about, that togetherness, and how do we have that time to share with one another and get this family to flourish, so that we don't have the third generation, the cousin generation start to drift, and we can bring them in together and find ways to keep them together. And it's so important for families. It doesn't matter about wealth.
No,
It doesn't matter about wealth. Though it's, if you don't do it there, any issues or cracks will start to appear, because they're not together. They don't have those things. So that, for a family of wealth, of means, it's really 10 times as important. It's not more or less important. I shouldn't say that, but it's just, it goes back to be intentional.